Five, four. You start
Uh,
testing one,
let's
two, three.
no, let's can
We are live.
we can
We are live.
keep it recording, but I just want to figure out how to send this out to people so they can.
All right, yeah, you do that, and I am going to introduce us. This is Michael David Cobb Bowen, and I'm here with my buddy Jason Littlefield. We're both from Free Black Thought, and today we are starting our first new podcast. You've probably seen or heard of us before uh, with other podcasts that Jason has done, and this is our new thing for Friday Night Live, and this is our first live podcast, and so we're gonna fumble our way through it and stumble through just like most people in life, and we'll figure it out as we go along. But we wanted to have it unedited, unfiltered, uncensored, straight and direct to you, our listeners, our subscribers, our followers, our friends, our neighbors, our citizen, and our fellows around the world. And so we are going to be about news and culture and values and shared wonderfulness. And we're not going to get too deep into politics uh, or ideology or any of those things. We're just going to get along and be the friends that we are, and share this in a spirit of openness and harmony with all of you. Now, if you don't know me, I'm going to spend a little time in introducing myself, um, because I have, some people who've been following me as a writer online for years, and I am one of the originators of a progressive Black political and cultural forum called Vision Circle, and that was in the early 2000s. And then concurrently with that, I also did founded the Conservative Brotherhood, which was Black writers and thinkers on the broad American right. Before that, I was an early pioneer on the internet. I was at the Well. I was at Cafe Utney. I was on the NPR Barbershop with my buddy Jimmy Israel under Michelle Martin. I've done a little television, TV One. I write a lot of stuff on my blog, cobb.typepod.com. And my current work is on Substack. My piece is called Stoic Observations, and it reflects, some growth and what I've done in trying to get past politics and get more deeply into culture and get take a little philosophical look at how we can all get along because we want to. And there's all kinds of noise out there on social media uh, that helps us connect, but sometimes it's an echo chamber, and sometimes it's not the best environment for getting messages across, or sharing nonverbal communication, because that's a lot of what we do. And that's one of the reasons we're doing this now. So you can see our faces, you can hear our voices, you can know, you know, how we react in real time and communicate more of than just words and just concepts or just sound bites or stuff like that. Now, as you can see, I'm I was born in the '60s, and that means I was a collegian in the '80s, and I am wearing my retro '80s haircut. And Jason's a little retro too. He's got the long hair, like he's a hippie or something. Uh, and I'm coming from L.A. County here. And where are you, Jason?
I am in rural, so
Rural
not
Texas.
only yes, I'm a Mississippi, out in the middle of nowhere, Texas, pretty much.
Cool.
I've about broadcasted out on the socials. I know there's there's got to be a. We're going to figure out an easier way to do this, but it reminded me just how exciting sometimes doing something new is. Figuring out how to do different. So I'm
For the
enjoying
first
that
time.
aspect.
So should we play some Madonna songs for that?
Hey, I say we definitely could use a little some of your stuff in the background.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't have that up. I have made some electronic music. I'm the father of three kids, and when I was raising them, I sure did like the hip hop beats, but I sure did not like my toddlers listening to the hip hop lyrics. So I got one of those, what they call them DAWs now, DAWs, digital something. Uh, and it was called, I believe it was Sony Vegas. And it had all the free music clips that you could put in there and lay down some tracks. And so I did a lot of that stuff. And I think I put it up on SoundCloud, and that's been fun. I've done about 6 or 7 albums of kind of EDM, drum and bass kind of music, and some of my old podcasts. I did the intros and outros for that stuff. But it's been a while. I haven't broken out the old Korg in a long time to make some music, but we'll work all that in time. But my approach to this whole thing, where am I coming from, and what am I trying to communicate? Well, I think it helps if you understand that I would consider myself a rationalist. All right, meaning I think the universe makes sense. We're not living in the matrix. It's not a simulation. I studied as a computer scientist when computers were a lot smaller and dumber, and you had to think your way through problems, and you had to conserve memory and all that stuff. So I grew up in the world of small memory models and keeping track of your own pointers. But I'm also, the father of someone who served, and the son of someone who served, and their personalities were more suited to service in the armed forces than mine. So that skipped my generation. Also, my grandparents were musical. I have a grandfather who was New Orleans jazz man, original guy, and my son played trumpet and flute. So I'm in the middle of music. I'm in the middle of forces, of armed force mentality, and I did what I called martial education. But if you had to reduce it down to 2 words, those 2 words would be virtue and duty. And I think these are the things that keep me sane, make sure that I have purpose in life, that I don't get distracted, and I think about my duty to others as a citizen, as a father, as a head of a family, as a good friend. Um, and I always strive to be virtuous. And some of it is a stretch for me, but I've always been kind of a square guy, someone you could trust, someone people like to talk to, and I like to talk to people. I'm best one on one, not in crowds so much. So that's where I'm coming from. Jason, on the other hand, he has other virtues, and why don't you describe what kind of person you are when you're communicating here?
Well, that popped in my head was weird when you said what kind of person you are. Like weird. No, you described it as my value is human flourishing. When I heard you and I were having a conversation. what comes through with you is this need for human flourishing. I was like, damn, dude, that's it. I'm about human flourishing. I'm professionally, I've been an educator for 20 years. And prior to 2017, I was just a dude trying to make his way in the world after a divorce and doing, like, all right, what are we doing now? And going to concerts and hanging out with my friends and just being a regular old dude in the world. And my profession, I was an SEL specialist, and I don't want to really get into all of that, but I started noticing that the way that society was organizing by just prioritizing a group identity above the individual, is like, that's actually reinforcing our innate capacities for prejudice, aggression, and cruelty. The basic way we are approaching each other and the ideas we are institutionalizing and normalizing under the guise of compassion and civil, like, in actuality, we're making it worse. And then, promoting another set of ideas, because I did put something else forward. So I've spent 6 years really trying to address this new ideology. You and I have talked about it on Reformation Radio. At odds, we've described it. We explained our pro-human stance, what we are fighting for. So we've done all of that. I've said all I can say about that. Now I'm ready to go back and talk about music, talk about the good things in life, and really try to capture and unite in a different sense. But what I butted up against was the thick ass political wall out there, because I had half of calling me, oh, you're one of these bad people, and then I had this half of bad people saying, oh, you're one of these bad people. I'm like, no. And also part of my message, also that false 50-50 thing, that's not a thing anymore and something we need to break.
So we're going to try to think our way out of that box. And one of the ways that we do it is with humor.
Yes.
And so I think we need to make fun of some things. Why don't we?
And we most definitely are. So yeah, that's where we're at now. There's no sense in trying to figure out or lament over the things that are wrong in this world. I'll save the rest for our back porch conversation as we close it out.
Okay.
But, yeah, hit that.
What's next on the agenda?
Let's do a little clown show review. So earlier, Mike, to talk about the news on here. We're things that are happening. I think it's important to say I don't trust the news. I don't believe in a news. Can you make that video bigger?
Gang. Ice cream so good. Gang. Yes. Gang. Ice cream so good. Oh,
Like,
take it, I. You got me feeling like a queen, huh?
This is where we are.
Slay, huh? Oh, take it, user. What is the noise again?
What?
Quack.
Just summed up life in
Gang.
clown
gang.
world.
Folks dressed up like
Ice cream so good.
What are we
Balloon.
doing? But anyway, as I was saying,
everybody
Gang.
knows.
I don't
Gang.
believe the news.
Oh, what is
I don't
that?
watch
Turkey
the
Gang.
news.
Balloon.
At this point, it's all propaganda,
Gang.
and nobody knows
Gang.
what's real and
Help
what's not.
Ice cream
So
so good.
whenever
Oh,
we
thank you, Arpit. Yes, Ralph. Thank you, though.
the
Oh, thank you, baby.
news,
This is so cute.
Tiny
the only bias
Oh,
with
thank you, baby. This is
eyes all
so
aglow.
cool.
is it
Ice cream so
easier?
good. Balloon.
Hard to sleep.
Thank you,
We're not here
purple.
to do
Yeah,
that.
waist my white dress so it can match the flowers
Ain't
in my
all
hair.
that
Beautiful.
sad.
Oh,
What was
take
that
it
trend,
inspiration.
Money?
You got me feeling like a queen, huh?
What was that thing that that blew up and got our attention? Because you know how in the clown world, it's like here is something new and flashy and shiny for your brains.
Is not a spy to
And
see
that
if
was something
reindeer
that the internet really took off. Yeah. And we really liked it.
Wow. That's crazy. That's crazy.
That's kind of when I saw that video, I was like, oh, this matches my internal dialogue for how I see life outside of this pine forest.
I'm still trying to figure out what exactly I saw there. And here's my guess. My guess is, you have the cute girl with the filters on, right? And she's got enough people that are looking at her live that they will put stuff in the chat. And then she does what they say in the chat.
Yes.
So, and I've seen this on Twitch where people pay money to say something in a chat stream, right?
Yeah.
And then these streamers will acknowledge that. I mean, this is completely opposite of free speech. It's literally pay to play, and then you're the puppet master, and you make this cute girl say the things you want her to say, and like sounded like she was saying emojis too. It was like
Yes.
like bubbles or something.
Well, and for us to realize that some of those girls on the other end are AI generated girls built and designed. So another way that the patriarchy is just
Don't say that word.
completely out of control.
Wow. That is a real clown show.
Something else that popped up. Did you see the Mitch glitch last week?
Mitch Glitch. Yes, I just did. I mean, I don't pay much attention to CNN, but I have enough friends who do, and I see that they're talking about it, and then I say, okay, something happened. You can't you can hardly miss, like, if the president falls down the stairs on Marine One. I think Gerald Ford did it. Maybe Reagan did it once. Jimmy Carter may have done it. It's like catch the president in a goof. But Biden, I think, has probably done more public falls than.
I do think that you're right, and I think it's important. I forgot to mention but as we do talk about the news, I want to be completely transparent that the site that I will be using is Twitter. The way the news now is I scroll through Twitter and see what people are talking about, see what's riling people up. Hold on a second, because I want to set that up. Because I have such distrust and disbelief in any of these networks. And years ago, when I was teaching, I would wake up and I would watch Morning Joe in the morning, and I would watch Glenn Beck in the evening, just to examine how two completely different stories are being told to people. So Anyway, I don't believe the news. I think it's propaganda. So I don't want people to be thinking that I take what we call the news seriously or believe it.
Well, that was pretty cringy. I mean,
But did
on the,
you play that Mitch
Yeah.
thing? Well, what this time did you pay attention to the lady in the green dress?
no, I didn't. I was
Okay,
pretty much
watch
transfixed.
Watch it again, and watch this lady in the green dress, because this is what made it so interesting to me. Not necessarily him freezing up. That was unfortunate for him, but what made me go, what? Was and pull it back up so we can see it with you.
Okay, I see a woman in a pink dress. Let me bring that back up. So she grabs him by the elbow here.
Rewind it
somebody
all the way
green-
from the get go. You can watch her.
On the left side.
Yes.
Cooperation.
Start that.
Oh, yeah, she
Start
just pushed
watching
her way in there. All right, she's
Well,
she's
go back,
walking
go back,
some
go
folks
back.
around. All right, hold on.
Cooperation.
Here we go. Hey,
And strength.
I'm
Watch
here.
her.
Well, they just zoomed in on him, but
He's still frozen.
he's
Still.
having a little brain fart there. He could be having a stroke. There could be.
But it could have just been timing. Really got my curiosity going was, why did he freeze up like that right after she touched him?
Go ahead, John.
She walked over. You can see her walking. She kind of had to go out of her way to walk over and touch him. But that quite interesting. Oh, I need to.
Okay. That's
What do you-
strange. Well, I mean, I suppose it's worth looking up. I'm sure that woman in the green dress and any of these people who are on national TV, we could know what their names are and what their relationship is to. He's a senator, McConnell, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's the Senate Majority Lead.
I don't know. I don't trust that institution, and I don't believe in it so much. I've completely.
Hey now,
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, I have the.
Just because there's a clown driving a Porsche and he wraps it around the tree does not mean a Porsche is a bad car. So no matter what idiot you put on Congress and in the Hill, it's still our government. It's still our democracy.
That's why I've been considering running here in the next few years, because any
Okay.
idiot can do it. You know, I've got a way better wardrobe than Fetterman, at least. I've got more hair. I can do that.
Well, you're close to the county seat, aren't you? In East Texas?
Yeah, I am. I am.
Well, you could probably get some teachers and some principals on your side, and
I can do it.
if you can win a seat in the county government with 700 or 1,500 votes, you're in there, brother.
I could go on a 2-year door knocking tour. I could take my time.
Cool.
All right, Mike. I've got something for you next. I got a little segment that we call it a smooth criminal.
Smooth criminal.
I'm going to name a handful of very smooth criminals,
Can I do that Michael Jackson move?
and I want you to tell me which one of them is the smoothest criminal.
The
and
smoothest criminal.
Any thoughts on them at all?
All right.
So our first smooth criminal is and these are all from our clown world, so they're
Okay.
really all stars.
Clown word,
Uh,
continue.
Sam Bankman-Fried, who
SBF. Okay. SBF of FTX.
got all those charges dropped.
He what?
Next we have
Hunter Biden.
yes, and keeping it in the family, we have Joe Biden.
Joe Biden. Okay.
And we also have Donald Trump. He is in the criminal news this week. And then we have a wild card here, and that's Lizzo.
Lizzo. Which Lizzo? Is this the white Lizzo or the black Lizzo?
Holy cow. There's a white Lizzo?
That's what they're calling Chris Christie.
Oh. Should be Wizzo. Wizzo is a lot cooler than white Lizzo. Yeah.
Okay, so I had to choose between who's the smoothest of these
Now, do
criminals.
you know? I'm sure you know why the first four are. in our
Yes, but
smooth
I
criminal
don't know
category.
what Lizzo has done
Well,
except.
let me give you a little bit of a rundown, and I'm sure there's been more information come out, and somebody will tell me where and how I'm wrong, and I'm perfectly fine with that. But Lizzo is accused by some of her former dancers of one of the things was body shaming.
Not one of them. Is one of them the left shark? Or was that somebody else?
I don't know.
Okay. Small joke there.
I didn't. It went over me. Probably too smart for me.
Lizzo's dancers.
Lizzo's dancers are accusing her of body shaming her. And when they were in Amsterdam, they also went out to one of the red light districts, and supposedly Lizzo coerced one of the dancers to eat a banana out of, well, there may be children.
Oh my goodness. This was a suggestive banana.
Yeah.
Okay.
Out of here in Texas, we have a big chain of stores called Buc-ee's, and there is a Beaver. So
Oh, Buc-ee's, yeah. Okay, I get the gist. All right, so Lizzo.
goes in some little criminal, and she's denied it and she's whatever. But those are. Do you have any comments about our smooth criminals? Is there a smoothest criminal?
Okay,
And why
I'm
did
going
you
to go through
select
these
them?
one by one. So, Sam Bankman-Fried, if he's getting charges dropped against him, then he's one of the smoothest criminals there, because I'm not sure exactly what charges he's been able to evade, but he clearly destroyed a whole bunch of capital. And he is kind of what I would say is one of the elites in the network, where you can drop names and say, okay, we used to call it, when I worked in Silicon Valley, I worked up in Foster City, and we would have people come through our software, and there would be these 23, 24-year-old guys coming in with Rolexes and Breitlings and, $7,000 watches. And we just kind of nudged each other. That's the Stanford Mafia, right? So you're connected in Stanford, and silly me, I was old enough to say whether I should go to Route 128 for MIT or Silicon Valley for Stanford. And I'd say, MIT is going to beat the pants off of Stanford. So I went east, and I worked in Cambridge. Silly me. All the money came out of Silicon Valley. But the Stanford Mafia is real. And obviously they have Silicon Valley captive, and if you know the right people, you can get a whole lot of money. And I witnessed that personally when, my company was trying to go public, and we have a software product that's still out there. It still works. Finally got bought by Oracle. But these other companies were doing nothing burgers, right? But they had the market. They had the Stanford Mafia. So, yes, I think SBF is another silicon snake oil salesman, and he's slicker than most. And he knows what to say. He's not stupid. But we went through this with the same guy who did WeWork. Remember WeWork? And it was a giant real estate scam. And lots of people lost money. And he destroyed the viability of that company because he got a lot of good money, cheap money from Japan, from SoftBank. And, they're halfway around the world and they're not looking at their money. So that, I think, is my number one bet. Joe is not smooth. Hunter is not smooth. They're blatantly obvious, right? Unfortunately, they're way more powerful than SBF.
Now,
SBF may have sway, but he can't stop the DOJ from doing its job.
well, the thing about not being smooth because you're so blatantly obvious is I was thinking, isn't that another level of smoothness? If you can just be and not get away with it. If you can do whatever, it's not graceful, but that's pretty damn smooth to me.
No, then that
Like the people you see on the videos in the cities that are just going into the stores and loading things in the bag and coming out.
That's not smooth. That's Bogart. That's like, a smooth person says, I have a right to do this. A real tyrant says, I don't have a right. I have the power to do this.
Yeah.
I don't even have to pretend that I care what you think. I'm going to do this because I can.
So you just admitted that we're ruled by tyrants.
We have a lot of tyrants, but we also have a lot of honest people. And I always go back to
they're just not in charge of things.
The Secretary of State for Donald Trump, who said, I've worked for bigger assholes than him. Right? And I was also a big fan of Mad Dog Mattis because I do pay attention to who Marines respect. And I read his book on leadership, and it's for real. But, Donald Trump's books on leadership, Art of the Deal, he's a snake. And he's not subtle. He's not subtle at all. The problem is Americans who want to be patriots of a certain type, and I certainly empathize with them, are looking for someone bold to shake up the system, but they picked the wrong guy. Because the fact of the matter is, he is a boss who doesn't delegate. And Obama was the same thing. Obama was a hog of the spotlight. When they captured bin Laden, he didn't give credit to anybody else. He was like, he came out there in the White House by himself and said, as of blah, 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 special forces under my direction have captured Osama bin Laden. He hogs the mic. And the same with Donald Trump. And the same with Black Lives Matter, because they stole the mic from Bernie Sanders. They just went up and bogarted, and he just
stole all that money too.
Yeah. So that's just out there, blatant, raw dog, no smooth, no subtle. That's like Stalin.
That's rough
like
criminal.
Hitler. Right? It's just, I'm Kim Jong-il.
So those are rough.
Exactly. They are the Mike Tysons of politics. I'm just going to get in there and I'm going to destroy you, and you don't have a chance.
And it sounds
nothing
like
smooth
Lizzo
about that at all.
It sounds like Lizzo may have just got all caught up in the moment in the red light district, but
yeah,
I'm
sure if she looked as good as I don't know, Sonia Braga. Well, I'm picking someone out of Straight Air. She'd get away with it, because I'm thinking about on the other side of that coin, the guys that never got Me Too'd, and like, oh my God, I'm just trying to think of the male Hollywood stars that everybody knew was sleeping around, right?
Yeah, that's another one of those things in my wheelhouse.
Or we'll just say Mick Jagger, okay?
Yeah.
Who's gonna Me Too Mick Jagger? Nobody. They'd be bragging about it, right?
Well,
and the person I was thinking about was Warren Beatty.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody's gonna Me Too Warren Beatty, but they'll Me Too the white Lizzo. Chris Christie can't get away with anything.
Now, you reminded me of another. I left out another smooth criminal, but that was Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey about Hollywood sex.
Yeah, I kind of think Kevin Spacey could get away with it too.
He did. He did here recently. Yeah, I had him, but he's.
I'm sure Kevin Spacey has a lot of dirt on a lot of people in Hollywood.
So all of these, well, I guess the only one that in trouble is Trump. He's the only person on this list that maybe they're going to try to get something to stick. All the other people, no. I just found
Well, imagine if DeSantis wins. All right? Let's say DeSantis wins. We're talking too much politics here. But if DeSantis wins and he says seal of approval for the FBI, seal of approval for the DOJ, and then all of the Republican Party will just say, oh, he's our president now. He beat you. Thank God we didn't get Kamala Harris, right? As soon as that happens, and it's DeSantis, DOJ, Hunter Biden and Joe Biden are going to come under some strict scrutiny.
Now, see,
strict scrutiny, because it's dog eat dog now. This is like we have elites that are just blackmailing each other, and they're using the American government, as its bitch, and I don't like it.
I don't either, and what I hope that we could inspire is for everybody. Don't just like push away, like you're sitting at the table and you've had too much. Like, okay, we're completely believing in that and acting in this way.
So let's talk about music. All right, you got another clown.
One more segment, and there is another video to this, and the title of this segment is "Oh God." Okay, but have you seen Barbie or? Because I noticed that. Can you play that video before that first video on the?
I don't know where it is. The Spoon Man again?
No. It's in that section.
Okay, there are aliens. Okay, I got that.
Yeah. So there was some pretty interesting congressional hearings last week.
I've been following that a little bit. So let's see what we got here.
Watch this one little. Maybe it's a minute or less.
Yes, it is. All right, here we go. Blah, 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 blah. There. And we share it, and it goes bada bing, like this.
Extraterrestrials.
Something I can't discuss in public setting.
Can you rewind it to see what she
I
asked?
can ask when you think this occurred. Do you believe our government has made contact with intelligent extraterrestrials?
Something I can't discuss in public setting.
Okay, I can't ask when you think this occurred. If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
Do you believe our government has made?
Okay.
All right. So, yes, the title of this is, "Oh, there's aliens," but have you seen Barbenheimer? Because this man testified in front of Congress, said, yes, there are the spaceship things, and yes, there are biological creatures flying, and other things throughout his testimony are the government. Ooh, I gotta say this. It's friendly to people that speak about it outside, that there's witnessing things, and that this has been going on since the 30s. And also there's been active campaigns to basically, you remember how people that used to, that like the UFOs on the tab growing up, that if you believed in UFOs, you were a weirdo. But there were these campaigns that the government was putting out to enforce that. So all of that stuff came out in Congress. Now, I will admit that lied in front of Congress, and so did Rafael Palmero. Rafael Palmero as well. So just because you testify, it necessarily true. I have to put that out there at least. But there was this thing, but however, nobody really cared. Everybody, the Barbie and the Oppenheimer and whatever, that gang girl eating up the apps. So
yeah,
that was my, this really is kind of a clown world, because you know,
right.
10 years ago, if you said, yes, there's aliens, people would have probably reacted differently. But now everybody's just like, okay, whatever.
Well, let's look at this another way. Let's look at this another way. First of all, I paid attention to Grush since he first came out. And what you will notice is that he's a grown-up. All right? He is 180 degrees reversed from Snowden and the other guy who transvestitized himself. I can't remember what his name was. But
Peyton Manning.
Not Peyton Manning. It wasn't Peyton. I know Peyton Manning has done some.
It was something Manning.
Yeah, Ashley Manning or something like that. But anyway,
Manning to woman.
And they thought they could get away with, being traitorous. This is a guy who knows the system inside and out and smart enough to do this the way it goes, the way it should go. So as far as whistleblowers is concerned, I think he's doing it by the book. And, you have to admit that after the revelations about the Steele memo and what has been uncovered in investigations of the FBI. And I don't know why we don't have independent prosecutors anymore. Has that kind of disappeared from our vocabulary in Washington? I mean, can we bring back the independent prosecutor, Ken Starr or somebody like that. But I'm saying, as a whistleblower, I don't even really care. I do, but I don't really care if he's right about UFOs and extraterrestrials. This could be as big as the Church Commission in terms of changing the way Congress has oversight of compartmentalized information in the government. All right. So he's not a congressman. He's not a senator like Frank Church was, but there's going to be somebody who may stand up on their hind legs and say, okay, I'm going to go with this. I'm going to take this and see if, because the American people deserve to know. And he's the hero in the same way any Navy SEAL that we do a movie about is a hero, because he's saying the American people deserve better, and I'm going to put my ass on the line to testify before Congress and say people have been what he called administratively terrorized, to keep their mouths shut. So I absolutely believe that. And I also know, because I have friends who do dark work or who used to do dark work, some of the lids of these secrets have been blown up, right? And some of it's doing foreign intelligence services, and even within the Five Eyes who blew up stuff. I mean, the biggest hacks in history have gone down in the past 15, 20 years. So I don't necessarily believe it's the same secret from 30, 50 years ago, but it's enough secrets that we know that Congress doesn't have as much oversight as they should have. And if all of this takes place in SCIF, then at some point, they can be shut up for a long time.
So speaking of what year do you think the CIA stopped spying on the American people?
I think two things. And I say this because I just read a book by a guy named Robert Baer, and it's called The Fourth Man. And it details the way that the CIA went about processing their beliefs that there was a Soviet mole at Langley. And so you can get 3 or 4 brilliant people to get to the bottom of anything. But if it's just those 3 or 4 people, they can keep their existence and their work secret from everybody else in Langley. So it doesn't have to be, it's not going to be a big conspiracy. It's going to be a special access program with the minimum number of people at all, right? Mm-hmm. And they can do stuff within stuff within stuff. Mm-hmm. And that happens. And he said, there's ways to figure out, you could follow the money if you care enough to do that. And I don't know. Hopefully there's enough congressmen with a spine
No, Mike.
There's some in there, and there's some who are like ex-military who would probably do this. I would say Dan Crenshaw, One-Eyed Jack.
No, well, we're gonna have to move on because you're gonna get me going down a path where I start talking about how Crenshaw is not one of the good guys.
He's not what he seems, huh?
No.
Well, I can't be disappointed because I don't care that much.
Yeah. No, he's anywho. Do you have something for us next?
Well, let's see. Next item on the Price is Right. Next item up for bids is a poem about openness. Dadgummit. This is supposed to be our openness show. This is our theme. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Opening things up a little bit.
Yeah, let's open things up a little bit. I have a poem here. Oh, no, wait. This is Lewis Carroll.
So we started talking about doing something. We wanted to make sure that, we had a theme something of value to talk about that was necessary for a free culture, a liberalism-based society, and one of them is openness, and that's openness to each other, openness to ideas, and then an openness way to disagree with those that may not necessarily be in line with us, but we can still be pretty open together, right, Mike?
Absolutely.
It's necessary. Like, there's a lot of things in this world I don't really care for, to tell you the truth. And that's why I stay away from them and I don't talk about them. And I'm trying to ignite a more joyful, laid back kind of culture.
Well, I'm gonna try this one. I'm just reading it. It's a very short poem. And I think this can be our openness poem this time, because I lost the bookmark on the other one, which was Yeats, I believe. This is by Emily Dickinson. There's a certain slant of light is the poem. There's a certain slant of light, winter afternoons, that oppresses like the heft of cathedral tunes. Heavenly hurt it gives us. We can find no scar, but internal difference where the meanings are. None may teach it, any. 'Tis the sealed despair, an imperial affliction sent us of the air. When it comes, the landscape listens. Shadows hold their breath. When it goes, 'tis like the distance on the look of death. So that one talks about a slant of light that is terrible. When you see things for what they are, it's like it slows everything down. It makes you, my little tweet on this I made a couple weeks ago, and the conventional wisdom is the truth will set you free. And I don't think that's true. I think the truth burdens you with an obligation. And the question is, can you handle it? Can you handle the truth?
Man, I'll tell you what. The truth, it burdens you.
It burdens you with an obligation.
Yeah, that's
when you actually know the truth. It doesn't set you free.
So, okay. So you remember me saying that when I discovered how we were systematically dehumanizing each other under this guise?
Yeah.
That was a hard piece of truth. And it burdened me, this obligation of, my God, we gotta do something about it. And not only we gotta, but we can. So there's what you just said is true and real, and not just some bumper sticker philosophy.
There's a certain slant of light. I'm going to use that one.
Yeah, man. And at this point, we do need to feel burdened that we know and the things that we receive. So I hope that the collective we out there will feel this once in a generation burden of we have to do something differently, and
I'm right there, all about duty, virtue and duty.
Poetry stirs us in a. It's
yes.
What it's designed to do, to stir and disturb, and mission accomplished. As far as how I took that in.
Cool, thank you. That all goes to Emily Dickinson, and I didn't stumble. I think I pronounced everything properly.
You did a great job, of course. So you ready to get into a little music talk?
Yeah, let's do some music.
So just kind of introducing this segment here is we'll spend probably more time in the future on music, and maybe if we're watching something rather than the quote unquote news, because like I said, that's probably not even real anyway. But music is that's been my thing. Even though I played sports as a kid, and all throughout high school I did the sports thing, but music was refuge. I didn't get toys at the store. I got rock and roll magazines.
Yeah, Thrasher.
Say it again.
Thrasher.
That was a skate. I did get Thrasher, Hit Parade, and Circus. Of course, Rolling Stone, Spin. Those. I used to get one called Relics, more about bands, but that's what I used to really. That's how I took part in the culture. I engaged through music, and so once we did a Reformation Radio episode where we said Aloha Culture War, and it's kind of like goodbye to talking about that. And
yeah, no more Culture Warrior stuff.
Really just been listening to more music this past summer. I just thought it'd be cool for us to talk about what was something that really got in your ear hole. And for a while, new to me was Roger Waters' The Lockdown Sessions. And why I selected that piece for this show, our first venture out on this thing, is The Dark Side of the Moon was the first piece of music that I ever bought with my own money. And I was 7 years old. I remember walking into the music store. My mom was like door or something, so I walked next door. I wanted to get the wall, but it was too expensive, so I got Dark Side of the Moon. But at 7, I was 7 years old, and I fell in love with Floyd. Now, as I got into high school, well, even in college, but now I don't really listen to him a lot. But I know that Roger Waters and David Gilmour and all of I don't care. I just as much about their stuff as I do the news and politicians. I just really don't. But I liked this album because I could hear the age in Waters' voice, and the music. It was stripped down, but not stripped away.
Okay.
So, and it played well like an album should. I like albums that sound like kind of a continuous flow rather than like these things don't really mix together. But I thought that this did that. And it included one of my favorite Roger Waters songs ever, The Two Suns in the Sunset.
Okay.
My favorite, probably Pink Floyd album, as far as what I listen to most, is probably The Final Cut. I found that at a used CD bin back in college in the 90s. And I was like, can't believe I've never, but it was their final album. And that Sunset, I love that song. I still will pull that album out, and it's in my frequent flyer rotation.
Okay. All right.
So that's it. And I'm wondering, can we play a little bit of that?
Two Suns in the Sunset.
Well, it's if you go back to the document for this show, there's a link. It's the Two Suns, and then it goes into Vera, because I also love.
Oh, okay.
I love Vera and this little mix. But yeah, just go to like 12 minutes on that. When I was listening to that Two Suns in the Sunset, I was curious. I was like, oh, they're not going to do because the saxophone in that song is really, really, really good, but they substituted it with like it's not a choir, but probably 2 or 3 soulful backup singers.
Yes.
And I was like, that is actually a really good job. So whenever you hear the girls,
Yes.
the original was saxophones, and that's how they stripped it away.
Interesting.
But I thought maybe we could just hear like a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I got it queued up. Here we go. I'm going to pop that over. And Roger Waters, the Lockdown Sessions. So let's crank that up starting around 12.
Imagine that's
Yeah, it has that.
and then so on those, now remember the ladies' harmonies were also the sax. You hear it in this song right here. That's where in the original, I mean, he is really getting that saxophone. So when I first heard that, I was like, yes, there it is. And it was on the like most intense part of the saxophone. So I was really pleased with how they actually brought some of that saxophone in there.
Okay. Interesting. Well, that gives me another perspective on listening to this. First of all, because when I listened to it before, I know more rock than I know, but I don't really know it. So I recognize some Pink Floyd, but if somebody said David Gilmour, I'm like, I don't know who that is, right? And I've gotten to the point where I've listened to a lot more Pink Floyd recently, especially Wish You Were Here. And during the pandemic, I did listen to David Gilmour just do some soloing, because I mean, David Sanborn had a studio where he let some musicians come through. And then there was a tribute band that did some Pink Floyd, and I listened to that. I mean, I love Shine On You Crazy Diamond because it just goes through all different kinds of fusion where there is saxophone, where there are vocals, where there is guitar, and they go through that same chorus. And I love that. But distinguishing now between Gilmour and Waters is a lot easier for me as I go back and re-listen to Pink Floyd. And Waters strikes me as somebody that you're sitting around a campfire. He's got an acoustic guitar, and he's going to tell you kind of scary stories through his lyrics. So he's like a folk singer. And I'm blanking on the name. I should have written it down. For the folk singer guy that I actually don't like, who is a rock legend. You know, the guy that sings like this.
Dylan?
Dylan, Bob Dylan, right. Right. So I never really got into Bob Dylan, but I understand how people get into Dylan, and I hear the echoes of Dylan in Roger Waters because he's got that folk songy round the campfire. This is my guitar. I'm going to tell you a hard story you don't really want to hear. And he gets into the lyrics and that. So when I listen to it, I'm like, okay, but then why does he throw in the vocals in the background? And I didn't realize that this song was part of another song that was done before. And so I was just taking it in the context of this one album. And now I know I realize that people understand those lyrics from a long time ago.
Yeah.
And having it done another way is very interesting. But I was like, you either got to do the Dylan thing or you got to do this orchestral thing with the backup singers. Why are you doing both? And so that was kind of tricky for me.
And that song's about.
The second thing is like I don't like being preached to. I mean, a poem inspires, but I don't want to come back to the lyrics and say, "Oh, that's what it's all about," right? I want a poem to launch me into a direction, and that's what I had. That's what happened when I listened to The Bravery of Being Out of Range.
Yes.
And I just said, okay, I like that. I stopped in the middle of the song. I said, I can just take off on that. The Bravery of Being Out of Range. And it's got the Dylan-esque poetry. Oh man, who are you going to kill next? You know, you're away from the foreign lands and you're sending the soldiers out there. Yeah. We get that. And politics and geopolitics is very sophisticated, but yeah, to start on that tangent from a folk song, that worked. That worked for me, even though that wasn't necessarily a folk song, right? But yeah, I took that poetic tangent to lots of places. So, okay, I'm now reevaluating the way I'm thinking about it because I didn't know some of this stuff was from The Wall. So Vera just as it was, like that.
It starts out with Mother, so that's on The Wall as well. And I don't know if you know this or not, but the reason war is the theme of his music is his father was killed in World War II. So war has haunted him basically since day one. So that's why he's so passionate. And I think that Bravery of Being Out of Range, I may be wrong, but I think that song debuted on this album. That song also got me because I was just kind of listening to whatever, but I heard that I was like, oh wow, that's a really, really good. I don't know if you have it up or where, I don't know where it's at. But I didn't know if you want to play any of that tune or not.
No, I just took it into a completely different direction, and again, sometimes poetry takes you away from the poem itself just by invoking an idea that you've thought about elsewhere.
So why don't you go ahead you want to get into that?
Well, I tell you what happened was it's kind of a joke between my wife and I, because whenever we're starting to explain something that's strange, we say, well, what happened was I listened to that record just as the Supreme Court decision on Students versus Harvard was passed down. And there's a little bit of background on that. One of the activist groups for the plaintiff asked me to come to Washington, D.C. To make a speech at the Supreme Court steps when they were just opening their session and taking that particular decision under consideration. And my schedule was just wrong. I mean, I was just coming back from some other place and I needed to be at work, and they just got me at the wrong time. And there was nothing I could do to change my schedule. But I certainly do empathize with, how shall I say it? I'm a little bit ashamed of being part of the preferred minority. You know, we're first among equals when it comes to talking about racial discrimination or segregation or integration or anything of those race relations topics. Nobody cares about the Vietnamese. Nobody cares about the Hmong. Nobody talks about, you know, people from Tonga, and we have a lot of those people here in Los Angeles County. But I was just like, okay, I'm one of those people, nominally black, but, you know, kind of, I try not to wear it so heavily, my original black man stuff, because I was there at the first Kwanzaa. My father, you know, started Institute for Black Studies in 1966. And I have not had any of these negative, psychologically crippling things that so-called black people are all supposed to have because living in America is so difficult. And I never got through much of what I got through because there was a set aside for me, right? So, you know, I can't say that I never needed the consideration of other people, but I make friends when I can make friends. So when my family went from black nationalists to we're going to do integration, then we just figured out how to get along. And, you know, I have white in-laws now, and it's no big deal. It's not difficult. I don't think we need government assistance in figuring out how to get along.
Do they put raisins in their potato salad?
Yeah. So I have the luxury of being out of range out of affirmative action debates. I can look at it dispassionately because I'm not self-interested in it. I'm not trying to self-deal to say, oh yeah, let's keep Whitey on the hook and get some benefits. You know, I'm not looting the American democracy because I feel put upon. So I have the bravery of being out of range. I can just say, hey, I'm not one of those black victims. And I'm not saying there aren't any. I'm just saying it ain't me. You're not going to hear me complaining about this stuff. And, you know, I've had a successful professional career, and I can take a lot of things for granted. And people just say, well, one of these days the Klan's going to get you, or, you know, I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. And as long as I'm alive and I got some say-so in it, I have the bravery of being out of range. You know, I live literally 1 mile from Compton, but I don't live in fear. So,
man, that's
that.
all very profound. And
right. And that's where the tangent took me. It's the bravery of being out of range. I'm not in the streets where the crap goes down. I did not live in that trailer park in Florida where Trayvon Martin got beat down. I was not in the streets in Minneapolis where George Floyd got taken down. I didn't live in Ferguson, Missouri, where Michael Brown met his untimely end. And a lot of people want to put themselves in range. They want to say, these victims are my people. And I'm like, well, what about Thurgood Marshall? You know, we're in the same fraternity. I'm like, when we're picking heroes, I get to pick all the heroes, you know?
Well, so the interesting point for me is just the tangent when I was like, "Hey, Mike, listen to this,"
Yeah.
and you were listening to the album, and then that music spurred something in you, just like that poem spurred something in me, and
Mhm.
just the importance, especially now, of people sharing things that they like with each other and having
Yeah.
conversations and just deepening friendships and community.
And this is the very opposite of a culture war. What we're doing right now.
right.
We are sharing culture.
Yes.
right. You're telling me stuff about Pink Floyd and Roger Waters that I didn't know, and I discover something re-listening it, and I may discover something else, right? And everybody gets bent out of shape about one book in a curriculum. That means they're not there to discover.
Yeah,
not
I
there to
think
share.
people are going out of their ways to look to be outraged, and that's not what we're doing. And
Yeah.
you reminded me, one of the other whole premises of what we're doing is that we are sharing things with each other, saying, "Hey, listen to this, so we can talk. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
And watch this, or we'll talk about it." And that brings us. Does that bring us to our next piece of music?
Yeah, let's
Because
get that. Let's
You
get
asked
that
me to
going.
listen. You asked me to listen to some.
Okay, I'm gonna talk a little bit about.
Do you have any final thoughts on Waters and that album?
I don't know. I like David Gilmour's part of Pink Floyd, and I don't necessarily want to go the Bob Dylan direction, but I may give it another shot. I may give it another shot.
The Blonde on Blonde later.
God. All right. Hey, Cameron, can you focus on me? Do you know who I am? Don't you know who I am? Come on, camera. I tell you. So I'm gonna put man,
Maybe it's tripping out on.
yeah, it is. It is. I said Bob Dylan and the whole thing fogged up. That's what happened.
I will
All
say
right,
this. You should check out Bob Dylan's tour history. That dude has basically been on the road since 1982.
Yeah, well, let's pop over to Ernestine Anderson. I will talk about Ernestine Anderson. Put the focus on her rather
Yes.
than on me. And we're just going to go into the old classic songbook.
On the silver screen, he melts my foolish heart in every single scene. Although I'm quite aware that here and there are traces of the cat about the boy. Lord knows I'm not a fool, girl. I really shouldn't
Tell us
get
about
scared.
Ernestine, because this was my first
Lord knows
encounter
I'm not a fool.
with her.
So this happened to be, I guess this pops back to my father again. He's 87 years old, and he's passing me his library, some of the books which you see behind me. And I've had the good fortune to be exposed to all kinds of jazz. We were up front in the Black consciousness and Black arts movement, and so all kinds of books. I was a bit of a prodigy as a kid, and I asked my dad, "What's the most complicated book that you have?" Because I read Arthur C. Clarke's 2001 when I was about 9 years old when it came out, And I said, okay, give me a tougher book. And he gave me Blues People by Leroy Jones, who became Amiri Baraka. And it was the first book I ever saw with footnotes. And I was like, oh snap, I can't understand this. This is heavy. This is heavy scholarly kind of stuff. And so instantly I'm 9 or 10 years old, and I recognize that there are very intellectual Black men out there who are writing. And that gave me comfort. So I've always been exposed to his whole library, and that includes his music. And so I'm at my favorite stereo store, and I see this album in the bin, Hot Cargo. And I'm like, oh, this just flooded me with memories. And I'm like, I don't know who this is. I want to listen to this album. And it turned out not only to be that I love her voice, but it's an excellent recording. So I got this thing for like $2 or $3, maybe $5.
Oh,
And it was just, it made me rethink what I'm thinking about jazz. And I love jazz and I love instrumentals, but vocals I don't like. I like Ella Fitzgerald and I like Nancy Wilson, and that's it. I can get into Sarah Vaughan a little bit because she did my favorite version of Chelsea Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
But just vocals in general, I don't like singer-songwriters. I don't think people really sing like they used to. And I get this voice, and Ernestine Anderson is just plain and clear and beautiful. And she doesn't do all those arpeggios and stuff like that. And she doesn't do all the scatting. She just has this beautiful, pure, strong, mature voice. And it just hits you. And then the lyrics come through. And these are all standards. Mad About the Boy, Cole Porter, and this is great. I put it on and I was just shocked. Song after song after song. I just listened to the whole thing through. And it was marvelous.
The thing you said about how you're not really a fan of vocals in jazz, that's me. And when I heard her, I was like, oh, one of my thoughts was I have to put her in a playlist with Monk and Coltrane. I have to add some, because I like to make playlists where some things like naturally they don't really match, but together it does. Because I also want with this playlist to throw in some Sade, which is kind of the absolute wild card. And you and I you already know I fell in the Sade well this past summer again and again. But those vocals, to think, so that album, I know you asked me to listen to one. I think it came out in maybe 1959.
Yes.
Yeah. And that was not a real pleasant time for Black women in America.
Yeah, people say that, but some of us were doing okay.
So, but just but my point, that music is so beautiful and so serene. I was these little tiny 2-lane country roads just turned up and feeling nice and easy. Like this is, and I, the other day, it's been too hot. I don't know if some musics are too hot or it's too cold for you, but it's been too this week to really, for me to enjoy Ernestine. But I'm glad that you showed me her. I had never, she was on my radar at all. and
The interesting
I
thing,
like her voice more than Ella Fitzgerald because it's almost like it's Ella Fitzgerald, but without anything extra,
without all the flash and
yeah,
the
yeah,
virtuosity,
yes,
but the soul of it, the purity of it comes
yeah.
through. Yeah, it's really interesting. As I'm reading the album here, and I got it for $4. Can you believe it?
Say the name of it again so people
This
can.
is Ernestine Anderson, Hot Cargo. However, if you have Qobuz, this was re-released in February of 2014. So the original recording was in the fall of 1956, and it's on Mercury Records. And I'm starting to act like an audiophile here, but
There you go.
the crazy thing is, she went to Sweden, and that's where she blew up. And so I just think this is grace under pressure. Now, if I think about my grandmother, it's a formidable woman on my father's side. They got married in the Depression, and she survived polio. She was a formidable woman, but grace, right? And when I first went to visit her, well, I was just a little kid, but she dressed like Jackie Kennedy. Pale blue, circle pin on the lapel, pillbox hat, white gloves, small pocketbook, sensible shoes, and she was just a proper lady. And so you wouldn't say, well, it destroyed her, or Jim Crow or whatever destroyed her. These people had grace under pressure, and they decided, I'm going to be classy, and that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to put my best foot forward, and people will be able to see this 60 years later.
Yeah.
That I am not destroyed. I can sing about love. I can sing about Mad About the Boy, Did I Remember, Daydream, Experiment, That Old Feeling, Autumn in New York, Little Girl Blue, Wrap Your Troubles in Dreams. I don't think Lizzo's putting out that kind of music.
No, and I want to make a note that you may also see this album on Spotify as It's Time for Ernestine.
Yes, It's Time for Ernestine.
So my favorite tune on that, like, okay, that's it. Whenever I played it, was that Daydream. That's my top tune from this album. And did I remember second favorite? And then the Wrap Your Troubles. Those were my top three from that. I appreciated.
It's beautiful. This is one of the albums where I just put it on and play the whole thing through. It's not like I want to just hear one song. It just puts my house into a completely different place. It's lovely.
So those are the albums that we'll be sharing, because
Absolutely.
that's what I like as well. So whenever we're talking music, we're gonna find these albums that impacted us, and something that really has caught our attention at a particular.
Amen.
Anything else about this, Mike?
No, this is again, it's very weird that I'm a kind of a groove person. I find music that I really love, and the only new music that I listen to is when I'm streaming kind of study music, some lo-fi, or some drone or some Soma FM. So I'm hearing new things in this down tempo electronic music all the time. But
Mhm.
I am now I'm like into the top 10 jazz of all these different guys. And I found a new record store in my neighborhood. So now I'm just kind of like opening up my head again to find new stuff. And I haven't done that in a long time. And it's interesting and it's fun. And I'm learning a lot of stuff.
Cool. I made a point last year to find a new artist once a month, and it was, but I was like, I intentionally sought out words on Miss Ernestine.
No, she's just beautiful. She's just beautiful.
I agree 100%, and I think beautiful is the word because her voice, it just sounds like what beauty is. It gives you that nice, easy feeling. So I highly recommend that. So we're getting close to being done. The second to the end segment is going to be where I talk a little bit about an aspect of empowered humanity theory, which is this greater idea that I've come up with. And one of the attitudes that I promote is a valued-centered identity. And by that, I mean that our daily thinking, our daily behavior, how we interact with others is all guided by our personal values. For example, my top three, and they've recently shifted just within the past few weeks. They were integrity, dignity, and humor, because those were the things that I needed to get me through very challenging situation. So I do leaning into those values and thinking about those things kind of gave me that little extra oomph. Rather than my identity being a straight, white, blah, blah, blah type person, because that's super boring and that doesn't describe who anybody is. Grace, liberty, and humor. And I chose grace because I want to glide the world. I know that nobody's perfect. I know that nothing is going to turn out as planned. I learned that people are going to come up short. I'm going to come up short. So, and especially during this post-COVID era, because things seem to take a lot longer. Something happened to the way people naturally act, but being stressed out and getting angry, I'm leaning into myself and others. And liberty is very important to me. I chose to go back and teach high school history as one way that is helping me live out that value. We're doing this show. You know, that's one thing, is because human liberty and free people getting along is really important. And then humor, good Lord, got to people and do all that. So everybody out there, man, I'm losing my voice, it sounds like. Ask yourself, is my thinking, is the way I'm thinking about myself, is that in line with my values? Is the way that I'm acting with these people, is the way that I'm exchanging this Twitter or change, is that within my values? So a way to keep yourself accountable to yourself and others while living a life that is meaningful to you. Because if you're not coming from a place of my actions are guided by my values, then our actions are being guided by external forces. And that. So in the week ahead, try value-centered identity and really getting a crystal clear definition of what your values, your chosen 2 or 3 are, and what they mean to you. And circle that through your all throughout the day. Am I aligned with my values? And you'll be, sometimes I'm like, nope, Jason, you need to step back this way. And it's a good, quick correction. So I call that a value-centered identity.
Cool.
And now we can head on out to the porch, Mike. We're going to conclude our shows with going out. And it's not just any kind of porch. It's the porch of your mind, right? It's a place where the tea is always sweet, but not too sweet. The whiskey is always perfect. The mosquitoes never bite. The music sounds just right. It's the porch of your mind. I've been spending a lot of time on my porch, just thinking, and kind of where I'm at now. One of my big porch thoughts, and there's our porch. I see the sun go down on my back porch and watch it come up on my front porch. But one of the things that's really been on my mind is, we're not here for a really long time. Our time on this planet is limited, and we really have to be making the most of it. And this really hit me recently because, I cared for my father as he passed away. And so, which was just a few months ago. So in the wake of that, I'm like, my father is gone and life moves on. Everybody is still doing things, and I'm doing new things, and his life, it meant something, but he's no longer here. So a lot of the things that we get caught up in this life, arguing online and just kind of being fruitless, a lot of that stuff doesn't even matter. And it's about how we use our time. And I want to use my time creating and building up and forming relationships, and what has happened to our country over the past few years. So I sit on this back porch, and these are the things that I think about. These are these kind of really, I guess, deep thoughts. I remember I was making a comment to somebody. Nothing really matters. We're all gonna die. So we need to enjoy every minute while we can. And that's where I've landed. So that's my deep porch thought for this week is enjoy your every minute. And that's where I stand on that.
I'm going to borrow from 2 different people. The first one would be Lauryn Hill. And one of her lyrics was, if they lie to themselves, what makes you think they wouldn't lie to you? And so the trick is, bit by bit, minute by minute, be truthful with yourself. Be truthful with yourself about all your strengths and weaknesses, so you don't have to be false to anybody else. So The second one is identity would seem to be the garment with which one covers the nakedness of the self, in which case it is best that the garment be loose, a little like the robes of the desert, through which robes one's nakedness can always be felt and sometimes discerned. This trust in one's nakedness is all that gives one the power to change one's robes. So you have to be able to trust the nakedness of the self so that wherever you are, you can be present in that moment. And hopefully you're not lying to yourself because you trust in your nakedness. You can live in the moment and you can change your robes appropriate to the situation. You don't have to lie to yourself. You don't have to lie to anybody else. To thine own self be true.
I like that, and I see the nakedness as just being with those values. Like that's it. It's just your naked truth self is you and your values. Those are the things that are important to you. You can't cover them up. They are part of who you are. It's good stuff.
Yep.
So that's what it sounds like at my place, Mike. That's what it sounds like in my backyard.
Yeah, I'm needing some bourbon and a cigar right about now. Would be perfect.
Yep. Well, hey man, there's two chairs there. We'll be down to Texas for too long. You got any final words?
Peace.
Peace.
Peace is worth fighting
Tuning
for.
in. Say it again.
Peace is worth fighting for.
It sure is. It sure is.
You gotta lay down your sword and shield. Struggle with yourself. You can always win when you struggle with yourself. You struggle with other people, you never know what's gonna happen.
That's right. Well, if you have nothing else, guys, we're gonna bid you a farewell with a few seconds of nature sounds, and we got a little special treat for you after that. Next Friday night and the Friday night after that, hear which musics we're talking about and what is happening in our clown world and how can we survive it. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to disappear so I can focus on that back porch. Thank everybody for who joined us in our live stream. See you next time.
seconds.
Oh, that does look good, doesn't it? Looking pretty good, eh, boys? And served with a little jitter juice. And there you go, buddy. Have a great day. And as always, please enjoy yourself